name is Alvina Begay. Yate Alvina Begay in Shia Tatnesani Nenchla Chanjikina Ebashichin Tobaha Dashiche Manahni Eda Shanala Egut Atana Asana. Hello, everybody. I just introduced my self by my clans. That is how we identify ourselves and introduce ourselves in the Navajo culture. So the reason I shared my clans right away is because I might have some relatives out there. So that's like one quick way to identify family relations out there. So that's just how us Navajos introduce ourselves. I currently live in Sahali, Arizona. That's in Arizona on the Navajo reservation. I just became a mother in November of 2020, and my daughter Yisnaba Johnson is with me. She's going to participate in this podcast with me. And let's see, I'm a registered dietitian. I grew up in a small town, Ganado, Arizona, that's located on the Navajo reservation. I am full Navajo. And let's see, what else? My significant other, Casey, and I have 2 dogs, 2 Australian Shepherds, and they run with us. That's me.
Congratulations on the birth of your baby. How are you finding motherhood?
I'm really enjoying it. I love it. I love motherhood. I mean, some days definitely are challenging more so than others, but for the most part, my daughter keeps me busy. And sorry, my dogs are fighting over a toy, so I'm gonna grab the toy. Hold on. So yeah, we have 2 dogs, and I'm a mom, and I'm working from home, so my life is just very interesting right now. So,
are you getting much sleep?
Yeah, Yesnaba, that's my daughter's name. She's pretty much sleeping through the night. I mean, she gets up a couple times, but it's mostly because she's hungry or need a diaper change. Yeah, I feel like rest has been I've been able to get rest. I'd say early on it was a little tough, but for the most part, I've been doing pretty well with rest.
Is there any significance when it comes to naming children from the? Oh, there she is. Hello.
So my significant other, Casey, and I were pretty traditional. We're very traditional Navajos, and we decided that we were going to give our daughter a Navajo name. And not everybody does that. You know, we decided to, because our culture is very important to us, we just, wanted to give our baby a unique name. So in the Navajo culture, her name means warrior. And then we just gave it a feminine touch by adding the yith. So her name, Naba, means warrior. So, and because of COVID and because I was considered a high-risk pregnancy and just some of the challenges of last year, we definitely felt that she was pretty special and deserving of a traditional Navajo name.
For somebody who's from England, from the UK, and many of our listeners maybe don't necessarily sort of understand what the Navajo culture is and what it means, could you just expand a little bit more on that?
So the Navajo Nation is located in the north. Located in the United States in the Four Corners area, mostly Arizona and New Mexico states. And we are the largest Native American tribe as far as land in the United States. I guess our history goes back to our creation stories. We live in Navajo hogans. Our culture is, we believe in like having a connection to nature. It's a pretty rich culture. I guess I'm hoping I'm explaining that right.
Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your childhood and growing up. Were you outdoorsy? You mentioned that the connection to nature. Did that sort of translate into being active, running, spending a lot of time outdoors?
Well, I grew up in a running family. Both my parents were runners. My dad was a state champion in Arizona, and he ran marathons. So I grew up watching my dad run and train. And then my mom was a full-time nurse, so my dad was pretty much training full-time, and my sister and I would watch him train and do workouts. So I grew up watching him run and train. And then I'd say about when I was 10 or probably 12, I had to have a Navajo puberty ceremony or a coming of age ceremony. And we have a ceremony, a Navajo ceremony, and it's basically where, as a female, I have a female mentor, and they teach me all the qualities of how to be a strong Navajo woman. And in those 4 days, the 4-day ceremony, I run. So, running is a huge part of the Navajo culture. And in this coming of age ceremony, a young woman will run 3 times a day to the east. And that's just to, teach her the significance and the importance of taking care of herself physically, and how running can make someone strong emotionally and mentally. So that's, as far as culture, that's one thing that that's how we incorporate running into the culture. But yeah, so I had my coming of age ceremony, and then another part of the Navajo culture is that is taught to us is the importance of running to the east every morning, and that's something that we're encouraged to do, to stay fit, to stay healthy. So that's something that I did and continue to do to this day.
What do you think about when you run?
Oh goodness, I have so many thoughts when I run. I'd say a lot of the thoughts that I have when I run are about what if I'm having a hard time, or if I'm having an issue with something, it's a time to sort through it, to process what's happening, to plan, to make plans. That's a lot of time. I feel like that's what I'm doing, or just planning and thinking ahead, or I think about my family. For a long time, when I was running more and training professionally and living in Flagstaff, Arizona, I felt like I did a lot more of that, was think about family, my parents. So now it's just more, I'd say, since I started running after having my baby, I feel like I've been using more of my time as just my me time, and thinking about just new goals and what I want to do, just sort through things. So yeah, it just ranges across the board. I think about pretty much anything and everything.
Yeah. When you were younger, what did you dream about becoming? Did you want to become a professional runner? Was that an option for you?
Well, I did. Yeah, I'd say I knew that I wanted to run from a very young age. I grew up in a running family. Um, my dad ran, he talked about these big competitions. We had Runner's World magazines in the house. So I'd see these, I'd see these pictures of races, and I'd see race results. So, I knew that I wanted to run the Boston Marathon. I knew races that I wanted to run at a young age. So, yeah, I'd say early on I had big goals of, continuing to run after college.
Was it easy to make that transition from, running, going through your puberty ceremony, and running to be a strong woman, and then how that changed when you started running professionally, when it's running for, not necessarily for you, but you're running for time, you're competing with other people, there's additional pressures on you. Was it easy to make that transition?
I would say, anytime there was a big change, or, like if I was from high school to college running, that was a big transition. And, anytime that I changed a level of competition or coaches or a running program, there were definitely challenges at the beginning. But I think just coming back, or going back to the traditional teachings of, I'm going to adjust to this change, or it's going to take some time to get used to this new system. Just learning that at a young age, I would help me through any rough transition. So
I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the Olympic qualifiers and how that works. And when was your first Olympic qualifier and what was that experience like?
So I qualified for my first Olympic trials in 2008. I was not a superstar in college. I didn't have super fast times coming out of college. So I started working with a coach, Mike Diné, and he's a Native American as well. And I just worked really well with him, and I was able to uh, complete workouts and train at a really high level, a level that I'd never been able to reach before. So working with him, I was able to transition to marathon training pretty easily and without getting injured. So I got the trials pretty quickly at the Twin Cities Marathon. And I think after that race, I felt like I put a lot of pressure on myself for my first trials in 2008, and then I overtrained and I had a ton of injuries. So my 2008 trials, I feel like were just about experiencing running at the Olympic trials and just, it had been a goal to run at the qualifying race in Boston. That's where the Olympic trials were at. So yeah, I feel like I wasn't 100%, but I completed it and I was okay with that. But I definitely, after the 2008 Olympic trials, I knew that I wanted to do better at the 2012 trials. So after 2008, I really focused and quit my job and just made my life about running for the 2012 trials. So yeah, so that's what I did. And I ran the 2012 trials in Houston, Texas in the marathon. I think for that race, I was just overtrained and tired and exhausted at the start line. And I didn't do well, but I did qualify for the outdoor track races, outdoor 10K in Eugene. And I had a better experience in the 10K than the marathon trials.
Going back to working with your coach, you said, he helped you to make this transition up to the marathon level. What changed? Like, how did he help you take it up that next level? Was it just having like a more formal training program? Was there other stuff that was added in or stuff that was taken away? What worked for you?
So when I was, I went to college at Arizona State, and that's located in the Phoenix, Arizona area. So growing up in Ganado is a very small town, tons of dirt roads. We're at that 7,000 feet. We get the 4 seasons. So the northeastern part of Arizona is completely different than the Phoenix, southern Arizona area, where it's just hot and desert and just sunny all the time. So, going from my hometown to Phoenix was a huge change. I'm a small town girl, trying to figure big city living out. That was a struggle. And I think just the environment was so different for me to adjust to. When I first went to Phoenix, I felt like my relationship with my coach wasn't ideal. It wasn't I wasn't comfortable working with my college coach. So when I graduated college and then I started working with Mike Diné, I mentioned that he's also Native American. He knew where I was coming from. He knew my family life, and he's worked with so many other Native American runners. I think he just knew. He knew and he understood Native American way of life. So he let me go home for ceremonies. He didn't make me feel guilty for wanting to go home and visit family. He allowed me, I guess, to practice my traditional Navajo ceremonies. He made me feel like I wasn't trying to pick between living as a Native American or living. I felt like I didn't have to make a lot of choices about, participating in my culture. And I think all of that just that mental freedom just allowed me to train freely and run high miles. And just, I had daily conversations with my coach. I was able to talk to him and give him feedback. Whereas with my college coach, it was just, the relationship there was very distant. So I think just the communication was a lot easier on my end. I felt more comfortable talking to my coach. And I was also home. I was back home. I was training on my home dirt roads, and I was in a place that I felt happy and comfortable in. So, there was a big change training for the Olympic trials, as far as environment and the people I was working with. So, all those changes, I feel like, told me that I'm not a city girl. I'm a small town girl.
It sounds as though he just treated you as this holistic whole person, incorporating all of you. So you're not trying to, remove parts of you to fit into the perceived way of how to be a runner, which is absolutely fascinating when you can get somebody who gets you and understands you and knows your culture and your background and your family and is just better on the communication. And when you're happier, you're going to get the results that you want to see. What would a typical training week look like for you when you were going after the Olympic qualifiers?
Oh gosh, it's so different. Like when I look at the different trials, I think with Mike for the 2008 Olympic trials, it was, your typical 2 workouts a week, a long run. I feel like with Mike, I did a lot more reps. Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot of strength training. I feel like it was a lot more volume based, which is, I think, typical for any marathon buildup. But I know for the 2012 trials, it was more, I incorporated a lot more strength training. So a lot more weights and just a lot of, I think that was the biggest difference between 2008 and 2012 was I just did a lot more strength training and I had fewer injuries. So that was a big change. I think I was giving myself more rest in between harder workouts, but I was also running 120-mile weeks. And then I was also doing a lot more speed work because my natural speed was not very good. So the coaches I worked with had me do a lot more hill work and 200s. And I feel like that was really beneficial to running a fast 10K on the track and getting that qualifier. So I think speed and strength were a big part of the training programs for the 2012 Olympic trials.
I think it's easy to forget those aspects of it. It's like when you run, people think it's just about running, and actually the variety of training that you can do, from hill work, speed work, doing strength and conditioning, building the muscle, making yourself stronger, is so important. And just out of interest, what's the furthest distance you've ever run? Have you ever run an ultra?
No, I think the longest I've ever run is probably 28 miles. Like, I don't think I probably did what was on the schedule, like what was on the calendar, and I stopped. There was like no interest to go even a step further than 28 miles. So.
No, that's good to know. I'm just thinking when you talked about like your pace and how you sort of, it's almost like a slower pace, and I'm thinking, oh, slower pace is good for ultras.
Oh my goodness. That is like, for some reason, like that does not spark an interest in me at all. Like I've had some people say, oh, are you going to transition to ultras now? And I'm like, no, I am good at just topping out at the marathon.
What is your favorite distance? Would it be the 10K or the marathon or half marathon?
I like the 10K and the half marathon. I think the half marathon is probably my most favorite.
You're a registered dietitian, and nutrition is obviously something, well, I could say it's something which everyone finds fascinating, but maybe not. But I find it really interesting. I know it's incredibly individual based on, different people's needs, depending on what they're doing. But when you're training and doing, 120-mile weeks, plus the strength and conditioning and wanting to compete at such a high level, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your diet, your fueling, your nutrition. What have you found works for you? Do you eat before running? What's your go-to snack during a run? If you eat during a run, you probably don't. And Sarah, let you answer the question.
I know that being a dietitian, I don't think I really restricted calories. I know that I restricted, certain types of foods because especially when I was running a 120-mile week, I definitely didn't restrict myself on anything. I definitely tried to make sure that I was getting enough protein in. Before a workout, I would have a light snack like a banana with the peanut butter with toast and some coffee. And then after a workout, I know that I would have like a bigger meal depending on, like if I had a big workout in the morning, I had a bigger breakfast after a workout or a big lunch, and then just snacking throughout the day, um, and then a nice dinner. But definitely, protein, red meat was a big part of my diet, just for purposes of getting iron, making sure that I got enough iron. Um, let's see. Yeah, I feel like I supplemented. I definitely took iron supplements. I think in the wintertime I was taking vitamin D supplements. I want to say those were probably the only supplements I was taking at the time. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't, I mean, being a new dietitian, um, I don't, I feel like I ate what I liked and what I wanted. And for me, that was important. And I feel like that was also a big part of my success, was I was making a ton of sacrifices and I didn't want food to feel like that, so I definitely made sure that I ate. If the dessert was there, I ate it. If there were cookies there, I ate it. Yeah, and I didn't have a whole lot of injuries when I was eating well like that. But I was also getting blood work done every 3 months. That was also helpful in my nutrition.
Why were you getting blood work done? Was that part of the training or part of working with your coach?
Yeah, so the coaches like to know the labs. I, as a dietitian, like to especially wanted to stay on top of my iron. That was a big part of it. Yeah, and I worked with Jack Daniels for a little bit, and he would always recommend that, if workouts were going really well, if I was running really well, it was always good to know your labs so you can kind of know where your sweet spot was.
What other things would the labs tell you? So I get like the iron. What other things would they be looking for?
Yeah, I think that was the big one, was just the iron. That was the main one that I looked at, was just the iron. And probably the vitamin D and the calcium levels as well.
So that's fascinating. I've never heard of blood work being done. I think you're the first person who's mentioned like having coaches doing blood work and testing and seeing that. What was the hardest aspect of training for you?
I would say being given these like hard workouts, the coach shows up and then he gives you this workout that just seems impossible to complete. And I remember I would say that was hard. I think mentally, and looking back, I would say that confidence sometimes was really hard for me. So any coach would show up to practice and, tell me the workout that he would complete. I feel like my mindset initially would be, oh my God, I can't do that workout. That's too hard. And then, as I got older, I think that mindset changed. I would say that just, the confidence and the mindset of, some of the workouts was hard. Was, changing that mindset was hard. Or, self-talk, positive self-talk in any situation. When during a race or, when runs got hard, just maintaining a positive mindset was sometimes really hard.
Did you ever work with a mindset coach or a sports psychologist to help you with your with that internal chatter, with having a having that positive voice inside your head and helping to deal with any of the negative thoughts that come in?
Yeah, I worked with a sports psychologist in college. That was a big help. And then I worked with a sports psychologist on and off throughout my professional running career. And every psychologist was different. They had different techniques and different methods, and they were all very helpful. So,
What was one of your favorite methods, or what, which was the one that, and I know different situations will call for different methods or different tools, but which is the one that really sticks out for you, which was like the game changer? Once you learnt this, you were like, whoa, this has just opened up a whole new world.
I did work with a sports psychologist. I specifically told him about, some of these workouts that I felt were impossible to complete. And he suggested, positive affirmations, positive self-talk, especially during those workouts. So like in some of the workouts that I was being given, I think my initial thought or mindset was, I can't do this. I'm not going to survive this workout. And then instead of thinking that, he taught me to think or say to myself instead, I can do this. I can do this. And I remember specific workouts when I was hurting so badly and just struggling to finish, and just telling myself or thinking to myself over and over again, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And just that repetitive thought or thinking, carried me through some really tough workouts. And I was able to complete some workouts that, looking back now, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I ran that fast at the end of a workout. So I think, just the changing my thoughts to, being aware of what I was thinking of, whether it was negative or positive, and then changing it to something that's positive. I feel like that gave me a lot of power, and it's something that I still use to this day.
Oh, it's so powerful. And what I think is really strange is once you know it, and once you start doing it and practicing it, and it becomes this habit, which is just ingrained, and then you start doing it just automatically. Because I remember when if I'm doing some like heavy lifting or something, doing a deadlift, like in my head, I'm literally like stronger and beast mode and like crazy. But it really helps to like psych yourself up and get you in that positive frame of mind. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about sort of running and pregnancy and running, with a new baby. Did you still run while you were pregnant, and how was that for you?
Yeah, I ran until I was about 33 weeks. I mean, I ran until it was like really impossible to run. Yeah, and I was able to do workouts until maybe like 30 weeks. But yeah, that last month, I feel like I was taking so many walk breaks. I mean, it was probably like a fartlek of like runs and just mostly walking. It definitely got more uncomfortable and just tough. It just was so tough to run, and I look back at pictures and I just look so huge. And I just feel so silly trying to I look back and I'm like, okay, now I know why I was struggling, because I was so huge and baby was squishing on my lungs and everything.
Was it squishing on your bladder? Did you not need to pee like every couple of minutes?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I was. It was, lots of bathroom breaks, lots of walking.
How was it after having, yes, Naba?
So I had to get induced. I found out at 36 weeks or 35 weeks that I had gestational hypertension. So I was induced at 37 weeks, and then I had a really difficult labor that resulted in a C-section. So I was not able to run for 6 weeks. So I didn't run. I didn't do anything until I was cleared by the doctor. And that first run was it felt so good to just get out and just move. But I was so out of shape. I was still really sore at the incision site. So I would say the first month was just really uncomfortable. I did take a lot of walk breaks, it's 4 months now since I've had Yithnaba, and I'm probably at 7-8 miles. That's my long run right now, but I'm comfortably at 4 to 6 miles a day now. And that took a lot of time. I took days off, and I feel like, the soreness is finally starting to go away. And it's been rough. I'm not going to lie, trying to get back into shape right now. And I have no ab muscles, so I'm rebuilding my abs. my ab strength, my core strength. But unfortunately, like, with COVID and no races that I planned or no races on the calendar, that's been nice too. And I don't have any pressure to get back into shape. So that's been helpful and and allowing me to ease back into get running shape.
How did it feel psychologically from somebody who'd been running marathon distances, training these 120-mile weeks, doing these hard physical training sessions, then going on this journey of being pregnant, having your baby, and then having to take 6 weeks off and almost starting again from scratch and not being able to do what you used to be able to do physically? How was that mentally? How did you cope with that aspect?
I would say during pregnancy, it was a lot harder just because I could feel my body changing. I could feel myself getting slower. I would say I had a harder time with that. And it was really hard too because, I was following some runners on social media that were running and they were running more miles than I was. So I found myself comparing myself to other runners and other people that were pregnant. And fortunately, I had friends that told me to stop doing that, that, I needed to focus on myself and focus on the health of baby. So that was hard, it was, and even Casey, my significant other, would say, stop that. You are not training for a marathon. You're training to have a baby. Your body's changing. I would say I struggled more with that during pregnancy, but after I had Yithnaba, I was in so much pain and I could still feel, I still felt the discomfort and my body healing. So I didn't have any issue taking 6 weeks off. And I knew that it was going to take some time getting back into shape. I would say I'm more accepting of it. I know that it's going to take some time. And there are days when I get frustrated and I want to run faster and longer, and I want I wish I had my old body back. There's definitely days like that, but I'm also in a different place. I'm in my 40s. I don't feel like I have anything else to prove as far as running. I feel like I've accomplished a lot of the big goals that I wanted to, and I think that helps too, psychologically and mentally, and also just I have a daughter now, and I feel like she's the priority now, And, Casey, my significant other, will say to me, when I complain about my stomach and the extra skin that's there right now, he'll remind me that, that's our baby's first home, and I need to be respectful of it and thank my body, So, fortunately, I'm surrounded by a lot of good people that put me in my place when I need it, and they put things into perspective. So yeah, there's definitely, I would say there's some moments now when it's a struggle, but I have good people that remind me and, to be grateful, and they help me change my perspective and my thinking on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting talking about, the people that you can follow on social media and the comparisons can start, and then you can start, comparing yourself against others. For me and my own mental health, what I do now, if I start feeling like that, if I'm watching somebody and start comparing, I have to either mute or unfollow. I just can't handle it. But then on the flip side, there are other people who I follow and it's not about comparison. It's just, who inspire me. They are, role models who I look up to. Who are your role models? Who are the women or men that you look up to and inspire you?
Oh gosh, of course I go blank when you say that. So I think right now, I'm following more people that are not running just because I don't want to compare. I would say Rachel Snyder is somebody that I'm following right now, and she just has, and I've listened to some of the podcasts she's done, and the mindset and just the reading, and she just seems like she has such a good head on her shoulders. She's somebody that I look up to right now, and it's not just, of course, of course it's related to running, but also, when I hear her talk, she has such a beautiful mindset, and you could use that mindset in any situation. I feel like she uses it in running. So I feel like she's somebody that I've been looking up to. There's another female, Michelle Reyes. She's another female that I follow on social media. She has 7 children. She has 1 arm, and she's just doing it all. And she's just beautiful in the way she lives her life. And she's somebody that I follow. Those are the 2 that come to mind right now.
Yeah. Amazing women. I will add their social media links so that other people can find them. And Alvina, how can people follow along with you, follow along with your journey?
I'm more active on Instagram, and they can follow me at my Instagram handle is AY Begay.
AY Begay, fantastic. And Alvina, I'd love to leave you with the opportunity to share your final words of advice for other women out there who want to get into running, they want to run more, they want to get outside more. What advice would you have for them?
I mean, considering where I am right now in life and getting, and especially getting back into shape, I would say be patient, especially if you have a goal or you're just trying to get back into shape. If you have goals of just, losing weight, getting back into shape, getting back into it, I would say be patient. You're going to have rough days, but just be consistent. I feel like that's been the key to getting up to my 8 milers right now, is just being consistent, making sure I get out there every day, and being patient and just being kind to myself, not being so hard on myself, and being thankful to your body for everything that it can do. So those are things to think about when you're out there.
Absolutely. Be patient, be consistent, be kind, be thankful. Amazing words of wisdom. And Alvina, a massive thank you for coming on the Tough Girl podcast and sharing more about your passion for running and the running journey that you've been on. It's been amazing to speak to you.
Thank you for having me on your podcast, and thank you for all the wonderful work you're doing.
Hey Tribe, I hope you enjoyed the episode with Alvina. What an absolute legend. Now, everything that we have talked about today will be in the show notes at toughgirlchallenges.com. For those of you who are brand new to the Tough Girl podcast, my name is Sarah Williams. I'm the host of the Tough Girl podcast and founder of Tough Girl Challenges, which is all about motivating and inspiring you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media. New episodes go live every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. Now, you may have noticed that there hasn't been any sponsors ad, there's been no breaks, there hasn't been any mid-rolls or end rolls. We just get straight into the conversation, and that is down to the patrons and supporters of the Tough Girl podcast. If you love what you're listening to and would like to support the work that I do and want to help me with the mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media, then please visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast, and you can sign up as a patron. There are a whole variety of different tiers, but you can sign up in US dollars, sterling, and euros. There's a monthly option and an annual option as well, so please do go and visit and support what you can. However, if you are not in a place to financially support at the moment, I totally get that. But another option that you can do is I'd love for you to leave a review. Because leaving reviews, what that does is it inspires other people to think, maybe I should give the Tough Girl podcast a listen. And I was left the most incredible review the other day, and I just wanted to share it with you. So the title is Should Be Compulsory Listening with 5 stars. This was left on iTunes, and this was left by Lifts, Hike and Leaves. And she goes on to say, I started listening to this podcast in early lockdown 1.0 as a way to live vicariously through other people's adventures. It's now my absolute favourite, and I never miss an episode, now working my way through the back catalogue. The guests are incredible, varied, fascinating and inspiring. I've learnt so much from them. Sarah has a lovely interview style. She's always genuinely excited and interested in her guests and keeps the podcast relaxed and informal. I was a wee bit outdoorsy when I first started listening, but thanks to this podcast, I have found confidence and inspiration to start cycling and solo hiking. A year later, I am planning my first bikepacking trip, have been on a solo multi-day hike wild camp, and I'm training for my first ultra marathon. My adventure bucket list is now several pages long. I wish I had heard this podcast earlier. I wish I had role models like Sarah and her guests as a teenager. I feel like I've really found my real self and my people through listening to this podcast. Thank you so much. Please don't stop. And honestly, I can't tell you what it meant to me when I read this review. I was just so happy about the impact it's having, but also just how it's inspired her to take on her own, bike packing trip, to go wild camping, to go hiking, to get outside, to find more confidence and to have that inspiration. And the key thing she said in there as well is, I wish I'd heard this podcast earlier. So I just keep thinking, who are the women in your life who need some inspiration, or who want to be inspired, or they need encouraging or help to step outside their comfort zone, to take on some new challenges, to have more adventure in their life. By starting to listen to the Tough Girl podcast, that is a phenomenal first step. So if you could tell one friend about the Tough Girl podcast, that would be amazing. Share it on social media, tag me in it. If you tag me at Tough Girl Challenges on your Instagram stories, it makes it super easy for me to then reshare to my audience as well. And it's so much more powerful when it comes from you. Because I'm obviously gonna say it's amazing and incredible and awesome, which it is, but it's even more powerful when it's other people sharing the stories and sharing their, the benefits that they've had from listening to the podcast. So a massive thank you to everybody who's been listening, everybody who supports, everyone who believes in the mission, and everyone who believes in the mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media. It is just so important to share these stories, and I couldn't do it without you. So wherever you are, whatever you are doing, just give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon.